My name is Brianne O'Brien, and my group and I are going to present our PowerPoint today on creativity and problem solving. My group members are Julian Correa, Kenny Lee Daniel, Gilbert Green, and myself. Here we have a little circle diagram that we put together of different things that you may think when you hear creativity. There are many different aspects of it. There are many different ways to be creative, and there are many different ways to implement creativity. So we're going to go more into that throughout this PowerPoint. Creativity. Let's get down to it. What is creativity? All in all, it is the ability to transcend traditional skills or ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, or anything in that matter, and create meaningful new ideas, forms and methods, different interpretations, whatever. You can think of this as originality or being progressive, or, like we said earlier, using your imagination. What is the requirement for problem solving? Well, as we have up on the PowerPoint, in the world of science and engineering, it is a requirement to be creative in order to find solutions to the problems that we are presented with. Seeing how, on to our next point, we have many forms of problems. There, for two examples, there are localized and global problems. How do we solve these problems, though? Is through creativity. Whether the problem is localized or global, many of the world's problems require an engineering solution. Since many of these problems do not currently have solutions, creativity plays a huge role in creating new and innovative results for these problems. Creativity is what leads to some of engineering's most advanced breakthroughs. That's also another reason we don't all get to become Bill Gates. But even people like Bill Gates have to find different ways to get creative in order to find solutions to the problems that they are trying to solve in that moment. There are many ways to get creative, such as going for a walk, hanging out with friends, sitting outside and enjoying nature, or even just watching the events going on in the world surrounding us. There's inspiration everywhere. You just have to use your imagination, and soon enough, a solution will come to you. Moving on to the next.
Next, we're going to talk about problems. What is a problem? It can be considered to be the gap between an existing situation and a desirable situation. We can also look at it as a question that is proposed for a solution or a discussion. Today's world has many problems, starting from food and water. As the population grows, we need more crops, and crops require a lot of water, which creates a bigger problem as we already have water shortages throughout the world. Another problem that arises is the lack of education in some regions of the world. A lack of education can be defined as a state where people have a below average level of common knowledge about basic things that they would urgently need in their daily lives. So a lack of knowledge in math skills, writing skills, spelling skills, all these, a lack of these subjects can create an issue, do create issues in certain regions of the world. Another problem, a popular problem that we face is climate change with the increased global warming and air pollution throughout the world. There's also a lack of economic opportunity throughout the world, and that leads to other issues where it comes to poverty, and um, it causes a level of um, persistence of a factor of unemployment, kind of leads countries to have less opportunity for leading back to education, food, and water. A lack of opportunity in those in economics causes these situations. Human rights is another problem that we face, and human rights is an inherent right for all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion. None of these should have a matter on these basic rights of having the right to liberty and freedom from slavery and torture. And we still struggle with that as a human race. Previously mentioned, the population growth throughout the world. We're growing at a rate of around 83 million annually, which is 1.1%. And that leads to strain on our food supplies, our water supplies, and economic opportunities are reduced as we grow, and we need to find innovative ways to fix these problems. Security is another issue that we face. Civil conflicts, terrorism, organized crime, and cybersecurity threats are also issues that arise in today's world. And the last one but not least, world health. When we think about non-communicable diseases are responsible for 70% of all adult death throughout the world, which are things like diabetes, which in some cases can be avoided. Another world health issue is global pandemics, which we're living through one as we speak. Poverty plays a big role in our health threats, as some people do not have access to clean water or immunizations, and also our overuse of antibiotics are now becoming an issue, as we are losing our ability to fight against bacteria and parasites that we've grown accustomed to having the ability to fight against. So now that we know understand the problems of the world, we kind of need to look into problem solving. What exactly is problem solving? It's the process of finding solutions for difficult and complex issues. How do engineers solve these problems? One is critical thinking, which is objective analysis of an issue in order to form a judgment. Once you have that judgment, which comes in the form of kind of a solution, you have to test and evaluate that solution, which is the next point. And sometimes when you're done with your evaluation, you end up going back to the critical thinking part, as you find more problems as you're testing your solution. Collaboration with other engineers, scientists, and labs can assist in our ability to come up with better solutions as engineers. And the whole process can be explained in more of like research and development, which a cycle of identifying the problem, being innovative and creating a solution, implementing a solution and evaluating the situation, and then adapting the solution to the environment after evaluation. Up next is Gil.
Thanks, Kenny. So I will be going over an overview of our topic and its significance. Specifically, I'll start off with creativity and problem solving in engineering. Creativity and problem solving are crucial and necessary traits to have as an engineer. That's what we do. We engineer things. It is those processes that allow us the ability to create new inventions. The most successful technique, the bulwark, so to speak, of this process is to think of new ideas is done through brainstorming. The most effective, it's most effective when used and applied to specific problems as opposed to general ones. Brainstorming can be done in a group or individually, but doing so in a group is proven to have better outcomes compared to individual brainstorming. Put two heads together. There are a number of learning strategies and methods that can be applied to achieve this. You can teach problem solving, and this will provide students with a challenge about strategy and method. There's the TAPS method, the TAPPS method, which requires a problem solver and a listener. There's the PBL method that teaches students how to handle a series of problems throughout the semester. And there's the EBL method, which is similar to the PBL, except it covers a broader spectrum of approaches. For example, small-scale investigation project. Moving on, I'm going to discuss the applications of creativity and problem solving in engineering. Like Kenny mentioned, there are a lot of problems plaguing the world out there, and I can't think of a single one of those problems that couldn't be solved by some form of engineering. And to achieve the solutions to these problems, you need to apply creativity to engineering. And the way you do this is, by the dictionary definition of the word creativity, it is the ability to take ideas and create meaningful new methods. As engineers, we will be solving problems that require creativity, as there are typically no available solutions. Going back to the we engineer things. There are a lot of problems, and I'm going to highlight a few current solutions that can be solved through engineering. The first is drones and robots. Drones and robots can be used to increase security while creating more employment opportunities. They can also be used in the food service industry. There's very little that these things can't do for us. There's, of course, renewable energy, which is a vital component of our future. We can use solar and wind to help power remote areas of the world with a minimized environmental impact. And on the education side of things, we can apply some of the distance learning techniques that we were forced to use this year, and it can be used to educate classes where a teacher is not available. An example of this would be a professor designing and recording an entire course and basically using it as a template before the course even starts, so the professor can be around to answer questions with what's out there. Last but not least, there's also the fact that just through data collection software and data science alone, these things can help us understand global health better and can lead to solutions, potentially even solutions before problems arise. And there are some issues facing engineering, however. There's a lack of creativity, and what I mean by that is that some engineers, not all, will settle in their jobs. They'll become complacent. We need to ensure that we continue to remain creative and do not become complacent in our jobs. We need to not just follow the instructions outlined to us, but constantly look for better solutions beyond what is required. Another problem is that there are less and less instances where people are expanding in new boundaries we haven't pushed yet. There's a lot of people who go into engineering fields and fields that are well understood. There's not as many astrophysicists, like aerospace engineers, or there's a lot of biomed engineers and all of that. So pushing more boundaries would create solutions to problems that we didn't necessarily know were there before. And the last issue I'm going to cover is that there's the case of old tactics being applied to new times. The best example I can give is finding gas-fueled machines in areas that are supposedly environmentally friendly. basically just picking society and up and just bringing it into the new age as opposed to keeping in the old.
All right, thank you so much, Gil. So moving on. So what we have here are some examples of solutions that came to some certain problems. So for instance, we have Conrad Zuse. The problem that he solved, or maybe not so much a problem, but something that he helped to create, was a high-level computer language known as Plankalkul. This was the first high-level programming language, which essentially means that it uses natural language elements in it. It also, some cool things about Plankalkul that was actually, that we still use today, for instance, are loops. So for loops, while loops, we also have conditional expressions, only local variables, not too many other crazy things aside from that. However, still very advanced for 1943 when you would think of programming languages. Another huge solution to a telecommunications problem was Morse code. Morse code was widely used for a very long time. It finally became obsolete, and I believe it was 2007 was its actual full obsolescence. Don't know if that's a word, but I'll use it. Next up, we have the ENIAC computer. This was the first electronic general-purpose digital computer. I don't know how much more to say on that. It really is, nowadays we have personal computers all over in our lives. We have them in our work, we have them in our home. Absolutely huge solution there. And then with Alan Turing, his solution of the Turing machine to help aid in solving the halting problem, or at least giving a proof for it, showing that all possible program input pairs cannot necessarily cause a program to halt. Then we have Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the original inventor of Bitcoin, which is an online cryptocurrency. Next, we have some challenges and opportunities. So some challenges that we have to think about is, at the moment, we're lacking newer, more advanced technologies. We need to create new technologies so that we can push boundaries in engineering. And opportunities for this are absolutely endless. One side of engineering that is fairly new in the recent years is environmental engineering, and the awareness for this is finally starting to come more and more to the forefront, especially with things like waste management systems. Originally, we were thinking of things such as groundwater contamination caused by improper disposal of waste, whether that be nuclear waste, whether that be human, or whatever it may be. Our waste management systems had to get up to snuff in order to help preserve the environment. However, we are facing an evolution of this above problem, which, as was outlined by the EU, e-waste. Now, e-waste is a main contributor to environmental waste at the moment and is caused by improper disposal of old computer equipment and general IT equipment, also other general-purpose electronics, such as refrigerators and cell phones, things like that. All of these devices have life cycles, and at the end of their life cycles, they need to be disposed of properly, or we will continue to pollute the earth, and that's something that we generally want to avoid. Another challenge is lacking of ethics. Now, this can span anywhere from not telling a whole truth to outright lying to, let's say, during a design implementation, you're using a material that is known to, under high heat, release a toxin, things like that. And you say, oh, it's never going to reach this high of a heat, generally, so yeah, it's fine to use. However, maybe there's some extraneous circumstance that you're not thinking of that, it might cause issues. So even though you already knew of it, you chose to go ahead with it even though it was just 1% of people, let's say, that would encounter that issue. Well, that can cause health harm, things like that. So as solutions, that would be examining alternatives to that material. Things like that as far as in ethics are things that we have to keep in mind as engineers. So next up we have our questions. For our questions, we chose these. How will you apply your creativity to make a positive impact on the future? In our case, it would be in engineering. So how could you apply creativity? What changes need to be made in this world that can be solved through engineering? Considering these questions, how can you implement changes? How can you go about solving those issues to really help affect positive change? Can we use problem solving and creativity to influence future engineers? Absolutely, I believe so. I think that we would be able to show that being creative and solving these problems creatively will help to influence our future engineers. And then finally, what are some good ways to get creativity or creative juices flowing?
Do you even engineer, bro? Here are our resources. You could go ahead and take a look at those as well for some additional knowledge on creativity and problem solving. And then our last slide here is our references that we used as informants on the knowledge that we put into this PowerPoint. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation on creativity and problem solving, and everyone have a great day and stay safe.